let me introduce them to you before we really get into the nitty-gritty. So we have Ben Marsh here in the middle. He graduated in 2019. You all must give that much love to our ladies as well, okay?
More so.
Ben graduated in 2019. He served as a missionary with the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, or FOCUS, from 2019 to 2021 at Assumption University. In his time as a missionary, Ben served as campus conference liaison, Seek 21 poetry judge, and led over 50 Bible studies. Since leaving FOCUS, Ben has been working at Christendom since what, May? Last May? So almost a year, as an admissions counselor, and obviously you all know him. All right, so then we have Helena over here, Helena Briggs.
Woo!
Perfect. She also graduated in 2019. She is a missionary outreach coordinator for Catholic sports in Alexandria, Virginia. In her role, she seeks to build an authentic community of young adults through recreational sports, and through that community, bring others closer to Christ. Her main duties involve running sports leagues, organizing social events, and leading Bible studies. She earned a BA in philosophy before discerning God's call to become a missionary. And then finally, we have Rosemarie, or I guess Rosie as you're known. Wait a minute, you have to let me pronounce her last name, because I want to do a good job of it. Rosemary Oshevsky.
Oh, there you go.
She graduated class of 2020. She worked as a missionary serving the poor and homeless in Washington, D.C. during 2020 to 2021. She went door to door or tent to tent, building relationships with the poor and loving those who are so deprived of that essential element. She now works as an administrator at Renaissance Montessori School and is pursuing certification to be an EMT. So we will definitely discuss that because it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Different. So welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. This is very fun because I actually worked here the entire time that all of them were here. Or, yes, so to speak. Usually I'm talking to people who graduated many, many years ago, and I never knew them. So this is fun to have some familiar faces. So let's start out kind of with the basic question of, how did you know you wanted to be a missionary? And tell us about kind of that path to discovering that. Anybody can start.
I didn't. So I spent the summer of my junior year into senior year interning in Washington, D.C. at the Heritage Foundation. I wanted to work in marketing. I wanted to do photojournalism. I was big into photography, big into graphic design. And I wanted to change the world through, like, we all come to Christendom because we want to restore all things in Christ, right? I wanted to change the world by helping change laws. I wanted to work for the think tank or work for a congressman and change that. And I think through that time, I realized that a lot of situations are changed not by changing laws, but that people change laws. And so we have to change hearts in order to change laws. And through that time, I was invited by the students, Mr. Judge, to discern being a missionary. And I had a fantastic experience at Seek 2019, talked to some real-life missionaries, and I started looking at it. And I had a couple other jobs that I was looking at. I was looking at working for the Archdiocese of Washington and some other places in D.C., but it was the one job that I kept not being able to say no to in a weird way. So I think I won't go into too much detail about it, but that's kind of how I found it. It was just I wanted to work to change the world, and I ended up trying to do that in a much smaller way, but I think much more meaningful.
Okay. Ladies?
Yeah, I think the road to becoming a missionary, or even discerning that, was kind of a long and just difficult one, just a little bit. It's something that wasn't clear when I was graduating college. I actually was working at Rappahannock Cellars. I know there's probably a lot of students here that still work at Rappahannock Cellars, but I was working in the production side, so I was actually doing like full-time winemaking assistance. And I had gone on some like mission trips at Christendom, specifically in my senior year of college. Went to Honduras with the Missionaries of Christ, and that was just an experience that really just changed me and changed my heart and made me really just have that first inclination of a call that God was calling me to be serving, I guess, my brothers and sisters in Christ in a way that was kind of beyond what I was really expecting. So kind of after graduating and working in the vineyard for a while, you spend a lot of time like in the vines. You kind of are just working with your hands, and it was kind of cool to kind of be like meditating in a vineyard, because it really easily translated to like, wow, like I see and I could tangibly feel and experience what like Jesus was talking about when like he said the harvest is abundant but the laborers are few. And because we really had a small crew and like we'd be out for hours and hours, and it was kind of while I was there that like I had remembered my time on mission trips, and I had some people reach out to me being like, hey, you just really, like, you seem like you have that missionary heart. You should think about being a missionary, either with Focus or Catholic Sports or something like that. And so a good friend of mine was a missionary, actually, Georgie. She was a good classmate of mine who was already a missionary with Catholic Sports, and she knew I loved sports, and she knew I loved building community and stuff. So I kind of went kicking and screaming initially because I was like, I don't know if I really want to, I don't know, do something that I thought was not going to be for my own like personal like development and fulfillment, but it ended up being like, it has ended up and proven to be the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. So
Awesome.
yeah.
I just need to interject here that I had very different conversations with Ben and Helena in their senior year about what they wanted to do with their lives, and neither one of them discussed this. So just know that things change, things happen. Obviously, you guys were influenced by very important people in your lives to pursue this call. So I just want to share that. All right, Rosie, tell us about you.
Well, mine was a little different. I kind of knew for a long time that I wanted to do mission work, and so even back in high school, I had a teacher at my school who would go to Honduras and like serve the poor there, and my parents never let me go, but it just like stirred something in my heart. And then at Christendom, I went on like mission trips, and then Henry Love had his homeless ministry club, Mother Teresa's Children. And then, so I would start going with that, and then, like, after he graduated, I kind of took it over a little bit, and so it was kind of just this gradual, like, starting to do things, and then, like, after a while, I was like, okay, this is just, like, what I'm meant to do, and so, yeah, it was kind of just what I knew I wanted to do after college, and so I, like, starting, like, pretty soon, like, in senior year, like, before, like, first semester, I was, like, already looking at different programs and whatnot, and then fell in love with this one in DC. It was just really cool because it's just serving, it's just like loving the poor and homeless in a way that like I feel like is not done a lot. Anyway, yeah, so it was just like a very natural thing for me to have done.
Can you tell us who you worked for? Because it
Yeah.
wasn't in your bio.
Oh, yes, sorry. It's called a
Organization.
Simple House. So it's a group of lay Catholics who, it's not like connected to, it's not like through a parish or anything like that. But there's two houses, one in DC and then one in Kansas City. And there's just like a few missionaries at each place. And it's just about like going out, like instead of having like the poor and homeless come to you, like a lot of ministries, it's like you go out to them. And so we're literally going to people's houses or like homeless camps and just like being present to them. So that was kind of the idea of the mission.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings up a totally random question that I did not prepare you all for. But tell us about your living arrangements doing these different types of missionary works. Because I think it's important. A lot of students are like, wait, where am I going to live with any job that they want to get, but especially this?
Yeah.
So for ours, it was actually, honestly, I felt pretty spoiled with our living arrangement. We had these like 3 houses. So we lived in Southeast DC, which is kind of like the scarier part of DC, because that's where the people we minister to. So there's a lot of violence, and around our house is pretty safe, thankfully. But that's like where the people we minister to live themselves. So we wanted to like live with the poor. So we had these like 3 houses in a row that the guys would live in one, the girls would live in another, and then there was a family that was involved with the ministry that lived in the third. We had this like nice backyard in like DC, so it was actually like, it was pretty great. It was a really old house, we didn't have AC, so there's definitely like no dishwasher. I don't know, there's like definitely things about it that were challenging, but I was very happy in the house.
And how many people did you live with?
So there were 3 girls in our house, and then there's 2 boys in the other house. So there's like 5 missionaries in DC.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, I think when you work as a missionary, you don't make a lot of money, but you are really spoiled with all sorts of experiences. So in the same situation, we had 2 guy missionaries, 2 girl missionaries living in Worcester, Massachusetts. And we had 2 houses that were amazing. Like for my first year, we had a 5-bedroom house, and there were 2 guys in it. It was just amazing. It was like the house from Miracle on 34th Street at the end. I was like, this is amazing. And even when next year we had another missionary team move into Worcester, we had 4 guys in the house, but it was still tons of space, and it was just a blessing that because we were renting from the college. So oftentimes you're either renting. You're renting in community, so it's not like typically when you graduate you have to kind of go out and hunt for a house on your own, but they want to make sure that you're housed and have anything. So oftentimes they hear that you're missionaries and you give you discounted rates and things like that. So that was my living arrangement. It was pretty amazing. We had the 2 houses right next to each other, and we called it Team Worcester, so it was great.
Nice. Okay.
It's funny, I'm like complete opposite of both you guys because I don't know if like this will probably be explained a little bit more, but so I'm a missionary in Alexandria, Virginia, and the people that I minister to are really just like young adults who I'm living with and just in the community with in the parish. As being a missionary, we're supposed to find our own housing, which I think was a really good experience, like right out of college, because I mean, it just was like real life experience, having to look for an apartment or a house. But as missionaries, we're supposed to form what's called like an intentional household with other like-minded women or men, if I was a male missionary. I currently live with 4 other women in a townhouse in really close to Old Town Alexandria, which is actually a very like ritzy part of Northern Virginia. It's actually probably one of the more expensive areas, which is just really kind of cool. And I'm just going to be completely frank that like it was tough for the first few months trying to find housing, like especially it was last year, the housing market was just really, really tough. And I really had to rely on like God's providence and trust in God and in a lot of ways that he would provide for me. And obviously like connections were so important for helping me find a good group of Catholic women. And we follow a certain like rule of life, and we pray daily together and have like a roommate like dinner once a week. But all my other roommates are none of them are missionaries. I'm actually the only missionary in this area, actually on the East Coast. And so, my other roommates are working for like, actually one of them works for EWTN, some of them work for Susan B. Anthony List, a pro-life organization, and then like teach and stuff. So it wasn't like provided for me. It was actually like an experience I had to go out and find that for myself. So.
Can I cut in with something on that as well, though? I think one good thing, a difference between us all is that there's a different type of community life in each one. I think Rosie and I were both assigned with teams that really became like for me at least, it was like became like a brother and sister. I mean, and you're assigned by yourself, but no matter what, you are assigned as a missionary with a community. You need a community so bad of people that are going to hold you accountable. And I think that's the kind of the through thread, but that's done in different ways. Sometimes it's, in Focus it's typically the 2x2. I don't know exactly what your situation is.
We're supposed to be 2x2, but we're just,
It's you.
it's just me right now.
We're getting there.
So really, you're actually going to be on campus tomorrow, right?
I will be, yes.
So she will be here tomorrow recruiting. If anybody would like to join her.
Yeah, any
So
questions?
you're not alone anymore doing that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the networking and the connections that helped you get the housing? Because that's a big piece that we talk about all the time with the EFL and just ad nauseum every time I get a chance to tell them to network and how important it can be.
Yeah,
Just do it, network.
Yeah,
Just
network.
make it happen.
It's you're going to be your biggest like asset. I had to really rely on just like word of mouth with like friends. I'd already been living out there with a friend in Arlington and just starting to like just put the word out. Hey, I'm looking for roommates. I'm looking for friends. I'm looking for roommates and a place to live. It was pretty kind of miraculous how it worked out. Just some friends of mine at a party invited me to play in a basketball league, and I was like, yeah, that's fun. Like, that's what I do for work, but it'd be fun to do one for fun, you know. And I became really close with my teammates, and it was kind of through that invitation to become part of a team and becoming friends with someone. It was kind of like a networking thing, but it was more of like a friendship relationship. That I was then invited by a friend of mine who saw that I was in need, and they said, "Hey, we have this house, we have this place, we have an extra room," and they've become like my best friends. But I mean, I think even like going greater than that, I was doing a lot of work within the parish of like putting out bulletin and article ads and talking to my parish priest if he knew of people. And the Basilica of St. Mary's, the church that I work with in Alexandria, and this is a very well connected parish of just like parishioners helping each other with a lot of things. So there was a lot of options, a lot of people who were willing to help out. So yeah, that was really, really crucial.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I didn't do anything for networking before I started mission work. I was like, I don't need that. Like, I'm just going to go straight into mission work. I went to an organization that I had no connections with. But then afterward, when I went to go get a job, I was like, oh, this is okay. I actually have to figure out how I can get a job, because I don't think I realized quite how much it really is well, anyway, so the way I got my current job was a parent at the school who's friends with my mom was like, oh, this position's open, and recommended me to the head of the school, and then I got hired. And so after that, I realized, I was like, oh, so connections are actually really helpful.
That's like 99% of jobs.
Yeah, because before that, I've been applying to so many jobs and didn't hear back from them and stuff. And anyway, so yeah,
Can
my
I
mind
connect this
changed.
to one other aspect?
Yeah.
Did you have to fundraise for your salary?
No.
So she didn't have to fundraise.
She didn't have to fundraise.
We have to fundraise our salary, which
That's a whole nother.
that's a good thing to question to ask. I went to interview with Focus. I had no idea that you were supposed to fundraise. I went in and this is
That's
literally
the reason why I didn't
Providence,
become a Focus
okay?
missionary. Ever.
So, but when you fundraise your salary and when you're doing all these things, it can be very scary. When you're looking for housing, it can be very scary. But I think part of being a missionary is that you realize that, first of all, God's going to provide. I was fundraising for a month. It felt like a month-long bungee jump. But in that, you realize that there are connections that you've made along the way, whether it's for housing, and it's also connections of connections, and that people are even willing to I was able to fundraise. The biggest helpful thing that I got when I was fundraising was not money that people were giving to me on a monthly basis, but recommendations of other people who they could go talk to in their network.
Yeah,
that I would if I got 5 names of other people to go talk to, that was way more valuable. So when you're looking at jobs, when you're looking at things like that, the biggest thing that's going to help you is just saying hey, who else can you put me in contact with?
Yeah.
It could be for a job where you really want to go and look for investors on your newest invention of how to dispose of toenail clippings, or it could be just that I need a house to live in. But there's people always are more inclined to talk with people that they know, or they know somebody who knows them. So don't doubt that at all. And if you feel scared at all about reaching out to someone because you're like, oh, maybe the connection is too tenuous. No connection is too tenuous. Just dive in and make that connection now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, let's kind of switch gears and tell us a little bit about what day-to-day work looks like. And I'm sure there's no normal day, but tell us about a few types of days you may have had in your experience. Ben, you want to start?
That's good. Helen and I were joking about this over beforehand. We were talking about this is kind of an inside joke in Focus. He's like, oh, you're a missionary. What's your day-to-day like?
It's the least favorite question.
Yeah, and in reality, it's tough because there's no same day. There's no continuous day. It's much more on a weekly schedule. I'm sure that Helena has this experience, and so it's so on Mondays we'd have a team meeting, and then we'd have a meeting with campus ministry, and we do a lot of our administrative work, and then we would devote the next day to fundraising, and we would be okay, I'm working on when you're fundraising your salary, you do a newsletter, and you do all these things that you're learning how to do it. Wednesday it could be your morning off, that's when I say your morning off. The biggest thing about being a missionary, and I'm sure this is even in your experience, Rosie, you're sharing your entire life with your field of evangelization. And so when I was a missionary, I would invite students to go grocery shopping with me. I would invite them to come work out with me. I would invite, I would be doing everything with students because you're teaching them how to live an integrated Catholic life, which is something that I think a lot of us at Christendom take for granted because it's literally everywhere. We have St. Lawrence up there, St. Lawrence over there, crucifixes. But not most people don't know how to live this, and I'm sure you experience this as well. And so the day-to-day life as a missionary, in reality, is you're living your life. You're doing the basic things, and you're making, the biggest thing is that you're doing is you're making connections. You're always kind of stepping out of your comfort zone, talking to new people, and having spiritual conversations, whether that's in leading a Bible study or going out and talking to people in the cafeteria for the first time or on the street or on the volleyball court. So I think that's my perspective of what a day-to-day life is.
Helena?
Yeah, I mean, I echo pretty much a lot of the same stuff. I think Focus missionaries and Catholic sports missionaries do a lot of the same stuff. The difference for me is that it's sometimes kind of challenging because I have to really create my own schedule because unlike Ben, I'm living very much just like in the world. I'm not on a college campus. So having to like create my weekly schedule is like something I have to be very diligent about at the beginning of every week. And yeah, I have one day that's dedicated to my fundraising, my keeping up with my donors. Fundraising is something that your donors are individuals who you are really building like a really kind of intimate relationship with. You're kind of sharing this mission with them, and you have to keep up that relationship. So that's constantly keeping in touch with, newsletters, thank you notes, whatever that may be. It's a lot of my day. The only thing I could say that is consistent every single day is the prayer life, which is something that is completely 100% across the board necessary for any sort of work in evangelization, ministry, mission work, daily mass, daily just like prayer time. But a lot of what I do on a daily or somewhat weekly basis is I meet up with people, especially individuals who are new to the area, who are looking to be connected to a Bible study or parish activities or even just something to do. And I recommend them to our sports leagues or our social events coming up and stuff. But also just walking with those individuals in a more intentional discipleship. That's something that I do. Like, it sounds kind of funny to be like, oh yeah, for work I go out to coffee with people sometimes. Like, that's kind of like just a little different. But those are like the most important, the most crucial aspects of our ministry is building relationships, building friendships, and meeting people wherever they're at and walking with them. I guess kind of the more overarching thing that I do as a missionary is run the sports league. So throughout the week, there's a lot of admin work to prepare for my leagues, which I run on Sunday afternoons or evenings. So there's just a lot of like logistics that go into it, admin work, and just like relationship building, communications, as well as like marketing and just networking. Like, I don't know, I think Ben kind of stressed it very, very well. I mean, especially for me, like I am very new in the Northern Virginia area as a missionary. I actually started the branch out there, and networking was pretty much what I was doing for 3 months. Constantly going to events, sending out my business cards, meeting up with people, getting people's numbers, just to like get myself out there, which was really uncomfortable at some points. But I've had to learn that like you just have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I continue to do, even though I have become a lot more established in where I'm at on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. I'm constantly trying to meet up with new people, especially those who are looking for
that kind of connection.
That connection, yeah, those connections, those relationships. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Rosie, tell us about yours.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a little spoiled in my mission work because I didn't have to fundraise, and also my schedule was a little organized, actually. So our work days we would work 5 days a week. It wasn't always like sometimes we would work a weekend, if like a Saturday or something, if there was like an event, some reason to. But generally we worked like Monday through Friday, and we would have time in the morning for mass and like personal prayer, and then we would start work at 9 and finish at 5. And so we actually had like a pretty consistent schedule. Not like what we did every day was drastically changed, but it was nice to have like some consistency of just being like, oh, I know I'm gonna finish at 5, and then so yeah. But we a lot of our ministry was just visiting people, honestly. So kind of like what Helena was saying, like I would go out to McDonald's with somebody and like, or just like it was just. It's kind of nice. You just get to like go out and eat or get coffee with people sometimes. So it's just a lot of, it was just like having conversation, like being present to people and showing them that they care. A big thing with our ministry is a lot of people focus on like inner city children of like, you know, we want to kind of like help them before they get too old and it's like too late to help them. But like our ministry is focused on the adults and like showing that it's not too late for somebody to like, I don't know, like change their life around, like get off drugs, stop drinking, just so many different things. So a lot of our ministry friends were mothers, and with COVID happening, all of the kids were home from school, which is not normal, like they're usually at school. And so it was like a complete, for me it was normal because that's all I knew, but it was like a completely reworking of like, oh, now we have to deal with these children being around, not deal with them, but like, like these children are around all day long. And so like when we're visiting their moms, we can't just like take them out to coffee. It's like we have to be at their house with like 5 children running around. And so it's just a lot of planning and scheduling time with different ministry friends. We had friends who would be like, consistently like once a week we would like do something with them, and then we'd also go door knocking to like meet new people, or like there was like a certain area that we would normally do homeless ministry at, so we like get to know those people, but then we'd also like go out to other homeless camps and whatnot. So it was a lot of just like we would have a weekly meeting at least, so that would we kind of like schedule the week out somewhat. So yeah, we'd have like ministry partners each day. We would like pick ministry partners ahead of time, and then if like you and this other person missionary had like a specific friend that you were the closest with, like you would go see that person on the day you were like working together. So there's some schedule to it, but a lot of randomness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about Christendom and your experience here. What sort of things did you all do on campus? Did you take advantage of in the area, or organization-wise, different activities that you feel really benefited you in your missionary work? Helena?
Yeah, a lot actually. Well, so I was an athlete at Christendom. I played volleyball and basketball.
She was really good at it too.
All throughout.
She was an amazing athlete.
Thank you guys. Which, I mean, that was just like so much of my life. So I just had like a passion for sports. So once I graduated, I was like, I just want to do something that's related to sports. So I actually went into coaching. I actually coached Christendom's assistant coach Christendom's basketball team and the volleyball team. And but more related to mission work, I had actually been on several mission trips actually when I was at Christendom, and served on SAC for pretty much 3 years. Was actually student body president, and that was those were especially those opportunities to kind of be serving and volunteering. That was in a way that I wasn't really going to be receiving anything back, especially like in a third world country. Spending time with the poor and the homeless. Those really just kind of formed me, and to like just start to look outside myself and my own, I guess, not necessarily like ambitions and stuff, but it opened my eyes to the need for just the evangelization and the ministering that is needed in the people around us. I know, let's see, Christendom is really good about sending missionaries all over for spring break mission trips, and each time I would come back feeling like I'm called to be a missionary. I need to be a missionary. So those are, I mean, if you're like even considering a life of ministry, I would definitely recommend going on the mission trips, or even just finding other clubs. You know, I actually kind of helped out with some of the homeless ministry programs that Christendom offered, and yeah, those were really helpful in directing me to what God was calling me to today. So.
Ben or Rosie?
I was going to punt to you.
Okay, I'll go. So Yeah, kind of like similar to Helena. Actually, Helena and I have, other than sport, I didn't do any sports here, but we've done a lot of similar things.
Intramurals.
So, yeah, a lot of intramurals. But yeah, the mission trips, I went to Peru my freshman year, and that was like life-changing, and like it was one of the most amazing weeks. But yeah, also doing the homeless ministry group, which was so incredibly special because it's just really cool how God works sometimes, because the people that I met like my freshman, sophomore year doing that club, I ended up like being able to go visit as a missionary last year. So it was just like, oh, I've known these people for like 3 years already, and I can just like spend time with them. So that was pretty crazy and special. But also, yeah, SAC helped a lot too, honestly, because all the like event preparation, it was a little different last year because of COVID. We couldn't have any of the families like over to our house, which is usually a big part, is like inviting people over and like having dinner with them. But we would like bring food to them, like bring casseroles to their house, or have like a couple people over for like doing crafts for Easter or Christmas. We did like cookie baking. So there's just a lot of, we made gifts for Christmas to like hand out door to door. And so there's just a lot of planning and like ordering of supplies and whatnot, which I had great experience in. Also just cooking for large amounts of people. Which,
SAC,
yeah.
go.
So there's like it's kind of funny how it's like these like random things end up like helping to prepare you for like down the line in ways that you like wouldn't really expect it to. So.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I guess I think I'm the proof that there's no one type of missionary then, because I was not an athlete, did not play on us, and was not an SAC. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for all of us, and I think we could pretty much agree on this, is just like the opportunity. I think I mentioned this before, but just like living in a Catholic culture, like living an integrated Catholic life, is so amazingly formative to becoming a missionary. I mean, my experience with doing focus training, I left for focus training, and there were a bunch of first and second years, and there were probably 600 of us living. I won't say the college name, but it was another Newman Guide college. I don't want to give them any sort of positive press. It was another Newman Guide college. We were on their campus, and it was amazing. But for me, it was just normal, right? That we went to mass every day, we went to adoration every day. But for a lot of people, this was radically new form of life that we were able to hand on to people. So that was the first thing. I mean, getting involved in the debate society. I know that's a controversial thing always, but yeah, we can stomp it out. Not even getting involved in the debate society, but just get up and give a speech, because getting up there and giving a speech I still get terrible anxiety whenever I go up and give a speech. Like I'm sweating,
like now.
my palms. Right now, palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. Seriously, no, but like that. But learning to do that and like do the hard and face those uncomfortable things is what being a missionary is. You're constantly entering into the uncomfortable, because the biggest thing, and I think we'll talk about this more, it's like the biggest thing that you owe the people around you, whether it's homeless people or your peers or college students or even your fellow students right now, you owe them your own conversion. You owe them growing closer to Jesus in your everyday life. You can never measure, like, you're never going to solve poverty. You're never going to force someone to be a saint, but you can grow closer to Jesus yourself. And that's what you have control over. And I think this is a great training ground for that. Like, I pray and I know that this is a training ground for saints, and that's where missionary life is lived out. So with that, I guess that you can't really go wrong.
I ditto that.
Okay. Can you all, kind of along the same theme, why are Christendom students uniquely prepared to be missionaries? What is it about their liberal arts education and just, Ben, you've really talked about the culture here, obviously that part, but is there other pieces of the education and the formation here?
I think you guys have no idea how amazing your education is until you get, like, I was expecting when I became a missionary that there would be these militant atheists that would jump out of bushes and say, "Give me 5 reasons why God exists, or else I won't believe." And I'm like, funny enough, St. Thomas Aquinas talks about this. There's nothing like that. But having that amazing formation that whether or not you realize it, even just in freshman 101, having that amazing formation, it kind of seeps into you, and you have this amazing background that you're not going to go and beat people down with it, but it's like having a fantastic first aid kit to go and remove wounds and heal wounds that people, either don't know they have or realize they have and are not willing to confront them. But that, I think, even just the intellectual formation, when you pair it with a deep prayer life, is unstoppable. And that's why, I don't think we ever use it on our advertising for Christendom, but we want you to be the shock troopers of the new evangelization, right? We want you to go out and wherever you're living, whether you're living as a missionary or you're living as an oil rig mechanic out in South Dakota, like
We've got a lot of those.
yeah. Oh, believe me, with
You can do a life on
a
top
liberal
of
arts
that.
degree, you can fix an oil rig. But you're able to go and live that Catholic life wherever you are, and that is the most contagious thing that I think you can bring up. So.
Yeah. Do you all have something?
Yeah, no, I
else to
think
add?
I would just like to echo that a lot. I mean, Christendom is, the old tagline used to be like, you'd breathe Catholic, breathe the Catholic air, and it really permeates into your soul. And when you're at Christendom, you really are able to build habits that you're really not able to, maybe at other Catholic colleges, maybe not, I don't know. There's something special about Christendom being so small. The campus being small, you're literally like 10 yards away from the Blessed Sacrament, and having like just a very integrated prayer life that's literally at your fingertips. Like your daily mass, there's adoration every day, confession is available all the time, which kind of like what Ben was saying, like it allows you to become equipped to be that soldier for Christ, which that's something that's kind of one of the only things you can really control sometimes when it comes to evangelization. Like you can try to argue with someone about the proofs of the existence of God, but sometimes like 90% of the like conversions don't happen that way when it comes to evangelization. It's most of the time through your example of living out a Christian life, a deeply Catholic life, full of joy and love, which is the most like crucial, I guess, and the most, like I said, contagious. You said contagious. I don't know, contagious, like tool of evangelization. And I've learned, and through being a missionary, because I think when I graduated college or graduated Christendom, I had this idea that evangelization is all about knowing this set of principles, knowing all the proofs of all these theological things, which, are actually very important to have, especially having like a very well-formed knowledge of what it means to have a moral life, because when you're out in the world, you're going to be dealing with people, including Catholics, who just are very misinformed with what it means to be living a moral and chaste and virtuous life. But, oh gosh, where was I going with that? I was about to say something about that. But what really matters, like I said, is that, gosh, this is so bad. What I recently learned is that, evangelization is less about having to know all the right answers, which we're never really truly going to be able to do, and like, unless we really, really study super hard, that's not necessarily, like, we're all called to evangelize, no matter where we are in our stage of life, whether that means we're on an oil rig in South Dakota, we're supposed to be evangelists. I've learned, you hear there's the universal call to holiness, but there's also the universal call to evangelization. And evangelization is more about introducing someone to your best friend, who is Jesus Christ. And if you don't see Jesus as like your best friend, the more you know Jesus, the more you can actually introduce him to the people who are around you. And that's what really evangelization is about. And that's something that you now are all able to like really practice and really get to know God through the scriptures, through your classes, through just prayer and adoration. to become so close to Jesus that you can share that him with others. And that's what really being a missionary to everyone else and who you encounter in your life really entails.
Rosie, do you have
Yeah.
anything else to add? Or?
Just two quick things. I was a theology major, and I feel like, I mean, Helena and Ben have both kind of said this, but like I felt like the more you learn about the faith, the more deep like your own faith is, and especially for me, but I'm sure for them too. But in like doing ministry with the poor and the homeless, like it's rough. Like there's so many people that have had like terrible lives, and there were times where I was just like, I don't get it. Like this, why are they suffering like this? And so it really took a lot of like it takes it's like this. You have to have this like deep faith in you to really like trust in God through that. And I just feel like being here and like learning about like so many different aspects of the faith and like going in depth about different parts about the faith. It's just it really helped to ground me in like knowing the truth and like not always necessarily understanding, but like to know that it's true and to be able to like go from there and like just have that basis. And then also just taking philosophy courses, I feel like it also helped me to just be able to have conversations better, to like not necessarily like debate or like argue with people, but just to be able to like be open-minded to other people. And that happens a lot where you like someone tells you something crazy and you're just like, but like being able to just like walk through them with that and like, I don't know, just much more like smooth interaction with people than just like coming at people with like, this is what's right and you're doing something wrong.
and I knew the people were there, and that supposedly they were watching the Mass live stream. And so we went and we brought the Eucharist, we brought the Blessed Sacrament to them, and we waited, and we waited. We waited there for probably about 20 minutes, and nobody came. It was a dorm of probably 200 people at a Catholic university. And it was really heartbreaking. But I think in that moment of just kind of seeing, it just kind of, I think, seeing moments of complete failure, it helped me recognize my own kind of brokenness of times in my life where Jesus like came to my door, and I was not going to come out and meet him because I didn't want to, I didn't care. So it's these moments where it's like really like you, as you said, it takes the focus off you, and it takes the pressure off you, because you realize that you're not the principal agent of the work. You're not the principal agent of evangelization. The Holy Spirit is. All you have to do is just keep going out and keep bringing Jesus to other people. And whether that bears fruit, that's not your job. You just have to go. You don't have to come back. So, yeah.
A lot of like spiritual attack, which is something that I mean, I have dealt with and continue to deal with, like during certain seasons of the year, depending on like what I'm kind of going through. And my spiritual director has like affirmed to me, saying that you kind of know you're doing something right if the devil is trying to take you down, you know. So I think just to kind of like highlight a couple of the struggles, which have actually ultimately become like completely overcomeable and like you said, triumph, like have become triumphs. One of them was like actually fundraising, which for me was like really going outside of myself to reach out to certain people. It sounds like a little bit more of a personal struggle. And
It's part of it.
Yeah, but very quickly my like mindset was switched on what it actually means to really fundraise. And people think of it as like, oh, you're begging people to support you and to give money to you, but it's really more of inviting others into mission with you and giving them the opportunity to be charitable. But anyway, the time of, I took about 2 months of fundraising. I think you only had 1 month. But during that time, I just like suffered a lot of doubts, or even just like just anxieties about, oh, is this exactly what I'm supposed to be doing? Or even like doubting my own capabilities. And that's something that I sometimes on even a daily basis, because ministry is something that is so much about sowing seeds and not seeing the immediate profits. Kind of like what Ben is saying, so like a lot of our work that we do is having conversations with others, just loving people in the moment, or reaching out to someone who is just suffering. You really never know the effects of your actions on a person, and we probably never will on this side of heaven. So it's very easy to be discouraged when you see like the things that I'm doing. I don't know if this is actually having any sort of effect on others. And myself, like my personal struggle with this is that I think I'm very much like a doer. I really like to have like tangible profit on the actions that I do. Having to really be humble and have to surrender that to God, and kind of give that to the Holy Spirit to allow Him to do, to just, I guess, like bring to fruition like the actions that I do. That's been like a struggle, because I'm constantly having to reminded that it's not about me. It's about me letting God work through me and trusting that what I'm doing is going to be bearing fruit. One other like side note is more boundaries. There's a struggle with boundaries when it comes to, I don't know if this is something
I was going to jump in with that, but you go ahead.
that you guys kind of deal with, but especially for me, the people that I minister to are actually my peers. So when I'm working, I'm also like, they're like people that I'm friends with. Like, it's really hard to distinguish what's personal and what's work sometimes. And so also having to be able to really like distinguish that is important, but also having to set aside time for myself to recharge and reset. I work 6 days a week and have to take that Sabbath like very seriously, because when you're working pretty much 24/7, you need to be able to like recharge yourself, like primarily like in prayer with God. Like our rest comes truly from Him, from God. But I've hit some really like it's very easy to get burnt out when you're constantly going, and not setting like healthy boundaries with yourself, but with other people. Something I didn't really learn before becoming a missionary, and I've had to just learn that hard way. So,
Can I
thanks for
add
those
2
questions
really
on
quick
that.
practicals?
Oh, you can always add.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. No, like
Interject.
seriously, like this is like, I know I love being spiritual and being like, this is super deep, but just flat out practicals real quick. It's really tough to have a good work-life balance as a missionary, as you were saying. I literally, when I started working this job, it was 9 to 5. I would come home, have dinner, and then I'd be like, okay, time to go back to work. Like I was in that phase, because when I was a missionary, I would go home, have dinner, and then I'd go out and prepare Bible study. I would go out and meet somebody else. You're always working, which is really tough. Second practical, to be honest, is like there's a strange pressure to live up to the hype. Okay, and we talk about this as missionaries. If you're a missionary, you don't have to be bubbly and joyful all the time. Okay, that's like we all like we're called to be joyful, right? We're called to be joyful as Christians, but I think that's a pressure that every missionary feels, is that they have to fake it sometimes, and that's not the case. Like
Or be a yes man.
Or be a yes man.
You have to learn to say no.
You have to learn to like actually have that hard stuff. And then the third practical is just, and this is a big thing that you should look out for, is if you're a compassionate person or even not, is compassion exhaustion. It's very easy when you're talking with people all the time, and I would have like 20 one-on-one meetings with students throughout the week, right?
It's a lot of meetings.
And in those meetings, like I could easily very much take on, and I'm sure this would happen with you. You could take on the problems of the people around you, and if you don't let that go, it can weigh you down, and you're gonna drown super easily. So that's a really big thing. Those are three things to be aware of. I don't know if there are any practicals that you guys can think of, but some things to be, I guess, struggles to be aware of.
I think, well, piggybacking off of your last point is you can't change people, or you can't help people that don't want to be helped. And so it's like you could, do everything under the sun to like try to help somebody, but if they aren't desiring that for themselves, then it's like you can't force it. And so it's a lot of like kind of like the boundary idea. It's like you just have to like find that balance of loving and serving others, but realizing that it's not your job to like fix them. Like they have to desire change in their own life.
Also, like coming in, I don't know if you guys experience this too, but like coming face to face with your own limitations. Like I can only be social up to a point, or I can only reasonably be friends with or reach out to this many people at a time. Which sometimes you feel like, oh, I can do so much, but realistically, God really like Jesus worked with 12, and allowed them to be working, like formed them to also then be like missionary disciples. And that's like, I think there's just a lot of humility. You have to learn that we are limited and we are weak and we can't do everything and be everything for everyone, because it, like with the whole compassion, exhaustion, it's very easy, to like become that emotional support for multiple people, which like can very easily weigh on you. So those are definitely some things you can, I don't know, just come face to face with.
I know we just talked a lot about a lot of negatives, but I speak.
We're going to go on to the positive.
I speak for myself and say, like, being a missionary was the best decision I ever made in my life. Like, I 100% stand by it. So I just wanted to add that on as we're going through. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was actually going to say, bring us up and tell us, like, what, we have to talk about the struggles, right? Every single job, and I can echo a lot of what you're saying. You know, I had 10 student meetings today, and so it can be exhausting sometimes, and so you have to set boundaries and say no and all that stuff. So I love the practical side of things that you guys are sharing. But bring us up a little bit and tell us what you're most proud of. What were some really impactful moments that you had, and hopefully might still have for you, Helena?
Can you start with me?
Sure.
Okay. Wow, gosh, there's just so many. I'm like, how do I choose just like one or two? I guess just like first of all, I'll just start from like the smaller end. I guess since working as a missionary, I've formed a Bible study with a whole bunch of Catholic women, and that has been like just such a beautiful and just like inspirational avenue for just like building really strong friendships, and allowing each one of us, myself included, to be like discipled by one another. And it's been really kind of cool because we started out really not knowing each other, but as I've been leading this Bible study for months, we've all become like really good friends, and we all go to like Sunday Mass together. There's like this whole row of like these 10 girls, and I'm just like, this is like so cool. Like the people that I'm ministering like with are like my best friends, and I know that they're going to be friends that I'm going to have like for the rest of my life. On a more larger scale, a lot of my job is really about like connecting people and bringing them into the community, which is fundamentally Catholic, but it's not just for Catholics. I run sports leagues throughout the year, varying, or it changes each sport every season, and it's just been really beautiful to see just like so many individuals coming into contact with one another. And after months or after playing in the leagues, then seeing them even like form relationships, some of them romantic relationships, but also just more importantly, just friendships, and like seeing them at Mass or seeing them pray together. That those are some of like the more tangible, like fruits of what I've been able to see. But I don't usually get to see a lot of or hear a lot of personal testimony from the people that I work with. But recently I was really like, I really say I've been blessed to be given this gift. Just a friend of mine, I say like friend, but like somebody I've been working with, he and his wife, just they told me recently, they had me over and they just like wanted to thank me for like being welcoming to them, or even just getting them connected with other cool Catholic people, because they had no idea that they were like Catholics who were cool and actually living out their faith in the community that I'm in. Because it's like when you're living in a city, you're surrounded by so many different kinds of people. But anyway, they just told me that they were that they started going back to Mass, and they started to like pray a daily rosary because of their involvement with like my sports leagues, and that just like made me melt. I started crying, but it was just like those are like very rare, and like I don't think God usually grants that gift of being able to see those fruits very often, because so much of what we're doing is sowing seeds into people's hearts. And I guess that was like something that really brought me a lot of encouragement and made me feel like, okay, I really want to do this forever. Like, because if I can just help one person become a better Catholic, then I can die a happy person. So, yeah, this is just some of my sharing.
There you go. You want me to go?
Yeah.
Is this me? Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Tell us about something you're proud of,
Something
an
I'm proud
impactful
of.
moment you've had that you want to share with everybody.
Yeah, two things come to mind. I think first is like, it's kind of what Helena was mentioning, was just the change in people over time. Like just like being an instrument to have difficult conversations, like confrontational conversations with guys, especially about things like stop watching porn, like, and to have like guys like, you know, stop lusting and like stop sleeping with their girlfriend and start praying a daily rosary. Like seeing that change and how they live their life is amazing. Like it's like watching someone learn to breathe again.
Yeah.
And that is like, I know very clearly it was not me that like made them do that, but like being like the instrument to like bring that about was really humbling, and just like and seeing people like be happier, like meeting somebody who's miserable and on the end of the rope and like just like talking to them about their problems and helping them. That's what makes you do the job for free, right? Like that's what makes it worth it, I think. And then the second aspect, which I think is the secret sauce of kind of all missionary work, is it kind of comes from like 1 Thessalonians. I'm gonna butcher this because I'm a Catholic, but 1 Thessalonians 2:8, which is like, and so being affectionately desirous of you, we desire not only share the gospel, but our very selves, because you become dear to us. That you become friends with these people. But I was just last semester, I was on Instagram briefly, and I came across a post from one of the students that I used to work with, and it was all of them in a sanctuary taking a photo with one of their friends who had just received the sacramental grand slam, right? He was baptized, he received his first communion, he was confirmed all at once, right? Like he got all of it, and it was brought into the church through RCIA, and there was a group of like 20 guys around him, like welcoming him and celebrating him. I'm getting chills just talking about it right now
Yeah,
because
I
it's
am
so
getting
awesome.
chills right
Like,
now.
but it was like when we showed up to this campus, like it was the first time Focus was on this campus. There were maybe 2 people going to daily mass, and now all these guys are going to daily mass. Like that community that you're talking about, that is something that it's not something that I was lucky enough to be a part of, but that's like something that got created, and that's what happens when you're missionaries, that like it becomes this self-sustaining thing that hopefully now will go and affect, another 20, another 40 guys the next year. So that's what I'm really proud of. So
I think one of the coolest things that happened last year, which honestly, it had kind of like seeing the fruits of your labor, it had started before I was even a missionary, and I wasn't even super involved with it. But so there's this family that was like a ministry family of ours, and the mom has a lot of mental disability issues, and she has like 5 or 6 daughters. So it's just like a rough family life, trying to like navigate all of that. And the oldest daughter, just growing up in a house where there's not much money, there's not much support from any parental figures, she, with the help of the missionary, started going to like college. She started taking like community college courses, and by the end of the year, she was signed up, and so is now, I'm assuming, at Benedictine out in Kansas, because it's near Kansas City where our other missionaries are. But it was just like the most beautiful, like she worked so hard, and we were really just like there to support her, and like she was just able to accomplish these like amazing things in her life that like otherwise would have, hopefully maybe they would have, but may not have ever happened without like God and like the missionary's support behind her to like show her that like she was worth like pursuing this. And for like inner city DC, that's like huge, like to go off to college. So yeah, it was just like a really beautiful experience to like mostly observe that, take part in it too. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing so much. I realize we're getting to our time. So I wanted to leave time for you all to ask questions, because I have several others I wanted to ask you all. But does anybody have questions? My eyes are adjusting to the light. Don't be shy.
my favorite color is dark green.
Back here.
Same.
It's not mine.
We'll get it to work here.
I feel like I'm a major speaker right now.
Yeah, very
You
good.
are.
We are all majors.
I was just wondering, when, like, you talked a lot about your experience, but when you're talking to these people, like, what do you talk about, like, specifically?
Give us the deets, the real specifics.
Nothing.
How's the weather?
So, like, I think the biggest thing that people, I think we're in a very lucky environment where we are, where we've grown up in good families. We've grown up, for the most part, in intact families where we have a mom and dad around and lots of siblings, and we're all able to go to college, and so we're decently well off and things like that. What you talk about, I think, is whatever that person kind of wants to talk about. When you first meet someone, you're just encountering that person for who they are. So many people, and maybe you've experienced this when you're a student here, and if you have, I'm very sorry, but so many people will only experience human interaction as an opportunity for use, that they are being used and they want to use other people. And so to just meet someone and talk to them and delight in them, and you hope, as in a small way, as the God the Father delights in them, and say like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. You come from like, you're half Japanese, like, and you have like these traditions and stuff like that. That's so amazing, right? And you build that relationship. Because at the end of the day, whether you're working with the homeless, or you're working with your peers, or working with students, the first step of evangelization is earning the right to be heard. You're earning the right, like you want to show someone that you love them for their own sake, not for what they can, not for what they can give you, right? That you can just use them as another stat for your Bible study or something like that. But they want to. Everybody wants to be known, loved, and seen, right? And so that's the first step is just kind of talking about. But if I saw a guy with tattoos, I'd be like, "What do your tattoos mean?" You know, or you just learn to ask questions. We would often just launch in the question of just like, "What is truth?" And just kind of, like a classic Christendom.
Classic.
That's not what I asked.
That's not what I asked you.
So I'm working with college students, so it's a bit of a different environment. So you maybe can do that with Christendom students. But you kind of, as a focus mission, at least, you kind of become somewhat of a Socratic model. You learn to ask a lot more questions. So.
Yeah, I guess, I think I might have said this before, but a lot of the ministry that I do is just very relational, and in order to build a relationship with anyone, you need to like build trust, and that, like Ben said, really comes with just asking questions, just kind of like you would get to know anyone. It's not like you're just going to meet some random person on the street and start asking them like,
"What's your favorite martyr?"
Or like, yeah, like who do you believe in God? Like, what are your thing? Like, what beef do you have with the church? Like, whatever. That's not really like advisable to just jump right into those kinds of things. What I really like to approach the people I minister to with is really just asking people what their story is, because everyone has a story, like whether or not you have come from a very like good, solid Catholic, like functional family, or you come from a very broken past, have gone through so much sufferings and everything. Like, regardless of who you are and what your past has been like, you have a story that has required grace to come in, God to come in and transform your life. And I kind of doubted that I had a story for a while. People asked me, like, "Oh, so what's your story?" when I first became a missionary, and I thought, like, I don't really have a story. Like, I've been Catholic my whole life. I lived around Christendom my whole life. I was born and raised. I just... Nothing cool. I didn't have any crazy like conversion, but really deep down, like everyone does have a story, and they want to be listened to, and so they want to share a little bit of themselves, regardless of what their walls are, the walls that they are building up are kind of saying. I think what I usually try to ask, is somebody, what's your story? What do you like to do? It's really just like building any friendship that you would have with someone. That you might know here at Christendom. Maybe they have a very different background from you, but that should kind of encourage you to kind of understand where they're coming from. And so much of, like, I guess, what being a missionary is about, like, meeting people where they're at. Kind of like the guy with the tattoos kind of thing. Like, what do your tattoos mean?
Tattoos always mean something.
They always do.
Yeah.
And, I guess, like, no matter where you are, whether that's, like, feeding the homeless or working in a third world country, or just even talking to someone down the street, there's always the opportunity to build relationship. And relationship and trust are things that you need to establish before you can even really kind of go into those more like theological and in-depth questions. So that comes after.
Mm-hmm. Rosie, did you?
I agree with that.
Other questions? Oh, up here. She's on her way.
So several of you said that you came to the decision to be a missionary like sort of later. So as a missionary now, is there anything that you wish you had done younger to help prepare yourself for your current job or position?
Pray.
Pray. Yeah, definitely pray. I think like I had said before, there's an ample opportunity to really be developing your prayer life here at Christendom. Like, you have the environment for it. I also would challenge something that I never really learned until becoming a missionary, and I kind of wish that I had learned when I was here at Christendom, was trying to like share my testimony, or really just like my share with the people around me about my relationship with God, specifically with each person of the Holy Trinity, if that even existed. And I would kind of argue that, like, at the time of being, I don't know, a Christian student, I confess that I didn't have the best relationship with the Holy Spirit. I didn't really know who the person of the Holy Spirit was. But it's something that I wish that I had really developed and grown closer to, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and learned to share that with the people who are around me. Just like sharing that joy, sharing that love, and that intimacy that I experience with our Lord, and even just talking about matters of faith, which I think here at Christendom we do talk about a lot of, like, our theology classes, philosophy classes, a lot of intellectual truths, but letting those intellectual truths permeate to, I guess, like, more of the heart, and kind of like share a little bit of our hearts with one another. That's something that I think I really wish that I had learned while here, which would have prepared me to be like a better missionary, because I had to learn that more as a graduate and stuff. So that'd be my answer, if anyone else has anything.
I think, yeah, I mean, I said pray, but specifically, like, I mean, you guys are amazing already, right? Like, you guys, I see you guys in the Mass, I see you, doing all sorts of stuff. You're way holier than me. And I, especially way holier than I was when I was a student. Like, to be honest, like, I really, like, I was an awful, I mean, I shouldn't say awful, but I rarely went to daily Mass for my first 3 years of college. And that's a real tragedy. It's right here. This is the easiest time it'll ever be to, like, you could literally walk to get there. So I mean, like, that's one thing I really recommend is just, if you want to be a missionary, if you want to even just, like, even if you don't want this, but this is what I recommend, is just, like, pray for 10 more minutes a day in silence and add one Mass to your week. Like, that's what I would recommend right now. Because, I mean, it's, again, wherever you are, whether you're expressly an employed missionary or you're going out and you're going to be selling anvils door to door, like,
Go with the randomest thing.
In South Dakota?
No, not this is in North Dakota.
Oh.
This is in Bismarck. No, it's literally, it doesn't matter. You are called to be a missionary wherever you are. Like, Matthew 28, Jesus says, go and make disciples of all nations, and that's to every single one of us. That's not just to the 12. That's not just to priests. We are called to go out and live that out in our daily lives, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or, I guess, a single person working in the admissions office at Christendom College.
Expecting something more
You're expecting
different.
You're a pickle
Yeah.
farmer. Is that better?
Yeah.
I have a whole, I workshop these on my notes app before I come up with random careers.
Rosie, did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Other questions?
I think we're good.
One
Can't
more?
even see
Any?
anything.
Okay,
As a matter of fact.
go ahead.
We can hear you.
Have you ever had someone challenge your faith during your missionary, and how did you respond?
So the question was, for the video recording, did anybody ever challenge our faith when we were working as missionaries, and how did we respond to them?
Yes.
If I'm understanding.
Do you want
I
to elaborate,
challenge
Rosie?
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Go
take
for
over. Yeah, I feel like I mean I kind of mentioned it earlier, but there's just like a lot of honestly in any career path job you're on, I feel like you meet people who are really struggling in life, and especially as a missionary, it's just you're kind of looking for it more, so you come across it more. But there's like a lot of situations that I feel like can challenge your life or your faith. And kind of goes back to Ben's answer for the last question, is to pray. Because, so last year my friend's mom passed away, which had nothing to even do with ministry, but it was like really hard for me. And I just like called a priest friend of mine, and I was just like, I don't get it. And so he like helped me walk through it, and like there's been certain gospel passages that like I really like connected with, and it's just been like kind of meditating on those and just like spending time with Jesus to be like, okay, like I may not understand like why this person or that person is going through X, Y, or Z, but like you are infinite goodness, and I like can at least believe in that, and then like go from there. Kind of, I don't know. It's hard to like give concrete like like examples or reasons for a question like that for
Yeah.
me at least.
As a missionary, you are going out and searching for this, and so you shouldn't be surprised when it comes to you're going to come across a lot of woundedness, a lot of anger, and a lot of vitriol against the church. I was serving in New England, where it's very culturally Catholic, but also there's a lot of wounds against the church, like caused by the church, by the clergy, and you ran into it everywhere. Just people who are just angry at God, people who don't believe in God at all. But like, I think that the hardest thing was the apathy that I would run into people. Is just they didn't care. I mean, G.K. Chesterton writes about this in The Ball on the Cross, but it's like the militant atheist is actually somebody who cares deeply. The worst thing that the world wants is that apathy, not to talk about it at all. And so it was when we were trying, like when people tried to silence us and tried to kind of curse us out, just say like, don't talk about it at all. That was the toughest. And it's, again, wherever you are, no matter what you're consuming, you're constantly being told who you are by someone, whether it's by the world or by either the music you listen to or TV shows or the books you read. You're being told who you are. And so it's so essential to have prayer and have the rosary, have scriptures, to affirm your identity for actually who you are, that you are a beloved daughter of God, your beloved son, that you're made for this deep intimacy with God. And so I think there's lots of experiences of that.
Yeah, no, I think I run into it pretty frequently, but like as of right now, like I'm still building like my ministry in Alexandria, so I'm working a lot with Catholic people, but there are definitely a lot of non-Catholics who are participating in my programs and stuff. And so I have had my fair share of just like talking to random non-Catholics or even Catholics who even challenge me on my faith. Yeah, that was actually something that I was pretty shocked by, was the amount of Catholics who think that contraception is fine, like living together with your boyfriend, those kinds of things, and having to have those difficult conversations with someone and kind of having to go back and, kind of defend your faith in those more like active ways is kind of difficult, but it's something that you have to really trust the Holy Spirit. And Jesus says this, I don't remember I'm, again, a Catholic. And he says, like, in those moments when you're going to be persecuted, like, don't be anxious because I'm going to send the Holy Spirit to speak for you. There's a lot of peace that kind of goes into having those conversations to just, I found myself having to just recollect myself, pray the Holy Spirit to, like, speak through me, but also to have humility that if I don't know the right answer to what someone is asking me, I can just tell them, that is an awesome question. I definitely can go back and look into the catechism, into the scripture, into whatever canon law of whatever it is that they're trying to challenge me on, and I can get back to you. And it's really important that I do follow up on that. Do you have something you want to
I'm
say?
just getting reminded of something. Sorry, do you want to finish?
No, that's kind of it. It was just more like not being afraid to kind of humble yourself, that
Yeah.
even if you don't know the right answers, that's okay. Like, you don't need to be a perfectly catechized person, and especially apologetics. Like, you're going to be faced with the randomest people who have these certain wounds about certain things, or just want to challenge you on the things that you might not be prepared for at all. Like, I don't know how to defend. I don't know. I'm not going to say it. But there's always the possibility, like I said, to inform yourself to be able to articulate it back to them.
And just one last thing on the career preparation thing. No matter what job you're going into, learn how to enter into conflict well. Like I met so many people in my day-to-day life, whether it was college students or even people who had been working in campus ministry for 30 years, that didn't know how to have a good, like, conflicting
Disagreement.
conversation and a good disagreement.
Confrontation?
And a good confrontation about like this, like, yeah, there we go, thank you. Good confrontational confrontation. But like, but learning how to have that conversation well, where it doesn't just end with people being angry and withdrawing, but there's a meaningful agreement that comes out of it, is super important no matter where you're working. I'm not going to come up with an example, but you know what I mean.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Well, we have been up here for a very long time. Thank you all so much for all of your attention this evening and your time for staying and hanging out. I hope you learned a lot from these three. I know I did, and I appreciate all the stories and struggles and triumphs and everything that you all shared. Before I have you give them a wonderful round of applause, do you mind staying after a little bit and
Yeah,
talking,
absolutely.
chatting one-on-one if anybody wants to come up and talk to them? And then the second piece of housekeeping business is we really love it when we have volunteers to stay and help put the Commons back together. So please, 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 we need at least a few helping hands. So we appreciate that. But give them a round of applause and thank them for being here.